I did not. I mean, how do you deal with that kind of rage? I don't know how God protected me, today, because all it needed was just one response that she did not like, and then she would have used her own phone to do whatever she wanted to do, and she bonded both children, and she left.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Anya Fombad, and I spark the hard conversations that challenge questionable cultural and societal norms that threaten the well-being of the African community. And I also share stories about growing up as Africans in Africa and in the diaspora. I strongly believe that normalizing open discussions and sharing experiences, whether good or bad, will not only make you find your voice, but will broaden your sense of purpose and empower others to do the same. So if you have ever tried challenging certain African cultural and societal doctrines, or if you have ever felt like it is about time that we confronted these issues in our African community and do better as a people, or even if you have always been interested in learning about the experiences of other Africans growing up in Africa and the diaspora, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Living African. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Living African. And today we will be talking about domestic abuse or intimate partner violence, which is a very important topic of discussion in the African community. So through the years, abuse has been somewhat normalized in relationships and in our community at large. There have been many examples of abuse that have led to a loss of life. And most of the times we only talk about abuse against women, but we seem to ignore the fact that actually abuse or domestic abuse or intimate partner violence against men actually exists. So I have some facts here some statistics that I just wanted to talk about. So some 1.2 million women and about 700,000 men actually experience domestic violence each year, according to the Office of National Statistics. And according to a study, Africa has some of the highest prevalence rates of intimate partner violence in the world. So today I will be talking to an old friend who has chosen to be anonymous and will go by the name Olufemi, and I will be calling him Femi for short. And he chose to become anonymous because obviously there are kids involved, and so he really wanted to be cautious about involving the kids, whose innocence should be protected at every means, and also protecting them from any kind of emotions that this episode might trigger. So I just want to welcome you, Femi, to this episode, and I am super excited to speak with you. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you so much. So, in case the audience doesn't know, of course you're anonymous, but I've known you for, I would say, almost over 20 years now. And You've always been that respectable, calm, funny big brother who you would never find getting mad, like always like just jovial and cracking jokes. And, you basically most of the stuff that we'll be talking about will actually be the very first time that I'll be hearing about it, and I don't know how I'm going to react or how that would affect me, but these are the kind of stories that are very needed in our community. And obviously, first of all, I would really love to thank you very much for the very courageous step that you have taken to open up to the world and be this vulnerable, because most stories of abuse or divorce on this platform have always been women. And though I know many other men who have similar stories worth telling, it has been truly challenging for them to speak up because they're either not ready or, the male ego gets in the way of their vulnerability, which I think it's understandable. So I can't really thank you enough for giving other men a voice through your experience and your story. So I think we'll just go straight to the point. Now, this is a sad story of domestic abuse that had a tragic ending in divorce. So we're going to have two parts to this. So the first will be focused on domestic abuse. And then the second part will be focused on the divorce aspect of it, even though both parts may overlap. So I just call on the audience to be very vigilant and also to be very patient with us, because I'm super excited about this discussion. And this is something that I believe is strongly needed because it's rarely spoken about. So just Femi, just walk us through the start of the relationship. How did you get to meet your ex-wife, and just the start of everything?
Yes, thank you so much. And this is amazing. To be honest with you, this is very therapeutic for me to even just talk about it. I mean, it's a couple of years have gone by. So, I'm in a more stable place. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it all started, we were in, of course, obviously now we're in the United States, we're in another country. It was a work setting that I met this person. And, I was more in a senior level position, if I might put it that way. And the way we came together was that she had her own issues and I was the quote unquote big brother. Right. And so it was purely, is it platonic? It was a pure relationship. There were there was nothing attached to it. This happened for a couple of months until she traveled to the United Kingdom.
So how did the relationship start? Like, how did it progress? I mean, when did you guys start dating? Just like tell us about the dynamics of the relationship, and how you felt at the start.
This is an interesting question. I'm kind of reflecting, as we ask the questions, like, how did it really start? Because in the work environment where we were in the other country, it was not just her. There were a group of younger people that were under my tutelage and things like that. So it was not like someone was isolated, but over time, I started developing the feelings. I mean, by the time I expressed it, she was already out of the country. Right. And so we kind of started text message style, snail mail style. You write a letter now and it takes 3 months to get to the other person and things like that. Mm-hmm. And apparently I still, to be honest with you, I still have some of the text messages, not on my phone. I have them on my diary. But anyways, long story short, so it kind of progressed like that. And for about 6 months, I showed more interest, than she did. Because I mean, she was in the UK then, and so she had a whole life of her own going on. In fact, I would later learn that that's because she was dating someone or a couple of people there. And so things just went like that. There was a period of silence for about 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe even 4 years. And then I traveled to the United States. The communication was still very sporadic, So when she had an issue, she'll reach out to me, just drawing you back to how it kind of started, when I walk her through it, then she goes back to her old life and things like that. Until she mentioned at some point that she was planning to visit, she was planning to travel to the United States for some, for some responsibilities. And then I was like, hey, why don't we meet up? And that's how it kind of started. And so when we met up, I expressed my interest for her. So I must say that I don't know if we'll get into too many details or not, but anyways, I expressed my interest for her, which she did not respond immediately. She traveled back to the UK, took some time and then responded affirmatively. And I would really say that is when the relationship started formally, even though she was back to the UK and then I was here in the United States. So long distance things going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was the long distance relationship for you at that time? Because long distance relationships are not an easy thing. And there are a lot of red flags that could be missed from a long distance relationship compared to when you are actually with that person every single day. So what were the dynamics of that relationship? And also, like, were there any red flags that you saw through the years? Like, if so, what were they?
Allow me quote the scripture which says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So how that translates to a long distance relationship is that, of course, yes, there's a lot of limitations. This wasn't just a long distance relationship, let me just say, between maybe one person's in California and the other person is in, maybe go up north to Washington State. But
Right.
this is transatlantic long distance relationship, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was very different. Communication was expensive, a couple of years back, and things
Yeah.
like that. So, but going back to the scripture, I just quoted that, out of the abundance of the heart. Over time, as you talk, we spend a lot of time on the phone. You get to really figure out what people's value systems are, what they really believe in, and what, and what they don't. And then it's when, as the conversation went on over the phone, we spend a lot of hours just talking on the phone, sometimes emails and things like that. And so it began to dawn on me gradually that the person, I had an expectation, the person I thought I knew back in our African country,
Yeah.
was not the same person that was, in the UK. So, but it was kind of hard. To be honest with you, my age mates, my friends, they were all already married. No one was really putting pressure on me per se, but I mean, there was some sort of pressure.
Yeah.
And if I may just be a little bit more vulnerable, I wasn't dating anyone. Not when we were in that country, and not even when she had traveled. So it felt like it has to be this person.
Yeah.
My big mistake there, if I may say that in retrospect, because now, even though with the long distance relationships, you talked about red flags. Oh yes, there were so many red flags over times. There were times that she would literally just disappear. I'm in the United States, she is in another country, different time zones, and things like that. And someone would just go for like 3 days without any explanation. So it made it even harder. But somewhere within me, if I may just, I felt like, I think in a way I was enabling it, because even when I tried to call her out on it, and and she said something which didn't make sense, and there were a lot of lies. When I say lies, I mean lies. But somehow within me, I kept feeling like I can fix it. So I think that was in retrospect, again, like I said, that was a very big, very big error on my part. And as things progressed, I don't know where my mind was, where my heart, what I was thinking about. I don't necessarily think I was in a desperate position. I don't think it was a lack of I don't think it was a lack of, of the right kind of advice or something about esteem or things like that. But for some reason, I was just trying to fix it. I had a picture of this person I knew, and I thought that I could change someone. That is so wrong in every level. And so I just kept going at it. I mean, I felt myself, with the passage of time, I just felt myself going down, going low spiritually, going low emotionally, going low even mentally. Why? Because I was trying to fix someone. When she started exposing herself to me, like what she'd really been through and things like that, I instead got myself more committed. To the point where I actually started seeing a therapist here in the United States, not for my own issues, but but for someone else's issues, which was generating issues for me, and ask me why I still was there. I just cannot explain to you, why I just kept going on with the whole thing, because it went on and on. And I'm sure somewhere she felt like, oh, wow, it looks like this young man has a high pain or a high tolerance threshold. So she pushed. Yes, and to be honest, that is kind of my nature. I don't cry pain easily, and so I kept absorbing, and that is what was pushing me to the therapist. And I did not realize that, I was bringing, things upon myself, that I shouldn't, So that is how it went, and it almost came across like you are the only person to fix me. And like you talk about the male ego, we have this innate tendency to want to fix things, and I thought this was an opportunity. All of those testosterone things just woke up in me, and I was really at it, to fix it. It took me a very good portion of time, years, to start to realize, how far I've gone and how wrong things were. Because from just going back to some of the conversations, some of the things that we were talking about, I don't think I was the only one that she was seeing. So she was not as invested.
Yeah, she wasn't as invested.
Yes, in the relationship as I was. I was there with my sweat, my tears, my blood, my body, soul, spirit, financially, and otherwise, you name it.
Right.
So, I literally took over her life. And I make a joke that no lady has really, I know eat is a wrong word to use to talk about money. We don't eat money, we use it. Yes, I really kind of brag that no lady has really, I've not spent my money on a lady carelessly or things like that. But this was one opportunity that I think they took the logical part out of my brain.
Right.
Yes. And then I just went for it. I literally just took over her life, her upkeep, her whatever she needed from that point. She made multiple travels to the United States, and I sponsored all of those things.
Right.
And as things unfolded, as time went by, she too finally moved to the United States because at one of the times when she visited the US, I proposed to her, and then we signed in court, and so we know that this was a journey that we had to go through, and so finally she moved to the United States. I filed for her, and over time she got her papers and things like that. Right. And you would imagine two people in a relationship, a man and a woman, who are like, oh, we are so glad to have each other, as not in a codependent kind of relationship, but an interdependent kind of relationship, complementing each other, completing each other, and things like that. So, but what I was hearing is someone talking about how they are so happy. Always speaking I'm in front of you, but you're all talking in third persons. I'm so happy that I left my previous life there. It's not like I'm so happy to be with you. And so I started feeling like I was forcing things. But this is the thing. If you don't get out early enough, the more you get in, even if it's an abusive relationship, the harder it is to kind of walk your way backwards and get out of it. It's more difficult once you're already in. So at that point, my fix her instinct, my fix her, whatever you want to call it, were already in display. And that's what I was trying to do, even when she moved to the United States and things like that. Yeah, she moved here before I knew it. I mean, she had never lived here before. But before I knew it, we were already in an adulterous relationship. She was already seeing someone. I don't know, or I don't know if it was more than one. I mean, I'm not saying that you're accusing someone. I'm saying things with first-hand evidence. Yes.
Wow. I mean, there's so much to unpack from what you just said. And I mean, like I said, this is literally the first time I'm hearing some of this. And there are a lot of lessons that I will be taking from this whole ordeal. But I mean, I just wanted to make something clear before we continue, especially to men, because there's this ideology in Africa, especially, that men don't show emotions. And some men may hear your story and they may start giving themselves a reason as to why they shouldn't show a woman emotions, because a woman would treat them badly. You know what I mean? But I mean, honestly, from what you're saying about, just being nice to her and going out of your way and doing all of those things, I don't even look at that as you doing it because you're doing it for the relationship. That's naturally who you are. You know what I mean? Like, you're naturally a nice person. You go out of your way for people. You want to make sure that everyone is okay, so that's really who you are. And it's just unfortunate that she took advantage of that person that you are, and I hope that you never change from that. But talking about change, it's like sometimes when we find ourselves in a relationship, it's like we try to change someone, like you said, and you can't change someone if they don't want to change, right? It's not a one-man battle. You can't change someone, or you can help someone. Even God can help us if we don't want to change, or if we don't want to help ourselves, right? So it's like, I know Maya Angelou has this quote, like, when someone shows you who they are, you believe them. right? So
Yeah.
it's like we tend to, especially when we have some kind of connection with someone, it could be a friendship, it could be a romantic connection, or it just could be a caring, like we just care for someone or we look up to someone. We always create this ideology of who we want them to be, or at least who we think they are, that we tend to get blindsided and ignore who they truly are, who they are
Yeah.
truly showing us to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I believe this was a perfect example of that, because she was literally showing you who she was, but
Yeah.
you had this idea, this ideology of who you really wanted her to be, or who you thought she was. So she would do certain things and you could be like, oh no, this cannot be her, this is not who I envisioned, this is not who God will send into my life.
Yeah.
And talking about pressure, like my previous episode about divorce, there's, I don't know, there's always this pressure that we put. Sometimes we could be our worst enemy. There's always this pressure that we put upon ourselves, especially as Africans. Nobody even pressures us, but we start by pressuring ourselves. Oh, you
Hmm.
have to get married. Oh, you have to, everyone else is doing this, but you have to do this, or I have to do this. Like, sometimes we have to take a step back and
Yeah.
just take it easy on ourselves and just trust in God's timing. For those who are religious, like, we have to trust in God's timing, or at
Yeah.
least the universe's timing, and know that whatever is ours will always be ours. Destiny can never be denied, it can only be delayed. So I mean, there's, like I said, there's just so much to
Yeah.
unpack from this. And I know you're talking about, when you got married, like, when did you actually make that decision to get married to her? Like, why did you make that decision despite, all the red flags that you saw? Was it that you wanted her closer to you, or you actually just really wanted to, you were just bent on fixing her?
Um, so that's an excellent question. I think part of it was two are better than one, and I think I was looking for a companion,
Right.
someone that at least we're alike enough for companionship, and then different enough for relationship and things like that. So when we reconnected, which in hindsight, when I looked back all the previous years, I realized that I was pushing it more than
Mhm.
she was pushing. And I did not step back to kind of reflect, because I believe that, a relationship like this, between a man and a woman should be mutual. People should want to be with each other.
Yeah.
One person should not feel like, the other partner is doing them a favor.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I really stopped, to really reflect on some of those things. And things carried on, you know what I mean? Things carried on like that. Part
Mhm.
of the pressure came from myself, and part of it was based on my own timing. That time is going by. I'm already in my early 30s. My
Mhm.
friends already have one or two or three kids, and things like that. So I succumbed to that. So even when I saw the red flags, what I was thinking in my mind was, how many decades again? I haven't known anyone. And
Yeah.
so I was like, this is it. So that is what I was telling myself. So, but I must just digress a little bit, even though it's really not a digression. It's not, I wasn't desperate. It was not like, I mean, I have very close people around me that I really do respect, that would bounce off idea of from each other,
Yeah.
So I shared it with them. It's not like I told them that it has to be this person. If not, I'm not going to, no, 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 no. No, I never went that route. To be honest with you, like 6 months before the wedding, I mean, by then we'd already gone through engagement. We'd already signed in court. Literally, it was a signing. We had
Mhm.
not consummated the relationship and things like that. We signed, and then she went back to the UK. And when I started seeing some things, I mean, it was I don't know what to say. There were all kinds of things going on. And when I shared it with one of my very close people, he almost his exact words, I cannot really quote him verbatim, but it was along the lines of, it's too late to turn back.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we can say it's good that we have very strong opinions. We do our own research and things like that. But there's no denying that the people that we have around us to also have a huge influence,
Influence.
over our lives. There's no denying. So it got me to a place. And because I trusted him so much, this good friend of mine who made that comment. So I got more into that I will fix you mindset, which if you look at carefully, I'm just talking about what I've learned now. But on hindsight, always trying to fix someone, it's almost like you're not accepting them for who they are. But I did not quite notice that. And no one really allowed me to cry, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I come from Africa, and it looks like the message that they pass across to men is that men don't cry. It is said in different ways, even without saying it. So sometimes it takes away the vulnerability, and sometimes even when the men act appropriately vulnerable, not weak, appropriately vulnerable, some of the women even look at it as a weakness.
Yes.
So guess what? I had to
man up.
Exactly. Thank you. I had to man up, This is how men do it. But right. From that point on, no one really listened to me. They heard what I was saying, but like they say, it entered one ear and went out through the other ear. And whatever she said, eventually they're like, oh, Femi, you need to do this. Femi, you need to do that. And I was like, wait a minute, guys, I have known you for a decade, for 2 decades, or 3 decades. This person has just shown up in my life, and suddenly I'm talking about these things that are not going right. I just want to make sure I'm not rash. And then, but I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying and things like that. So even among my friendship, among my community, I'm talking about strong community that we had built together for like 7-10 years before this lady came into my life in the United States. Yeah. I started feeling this sense of isolation. I started feeling like I wasn't being heard, and things like that. And so I'm glad this whole thing is just, there's a lot of anonymity involved in the whole thing, because she was a master manipulator. Yeah. And the bone mass, talk about the science or the biology of men, the muscle mass, everything, the strength. So you look at the man, you assume that if there's any trouble, probably it's coming from the man. So the ladies who are manipulative, like my ex spouse was, they just know how to play along. So she could push a button, and then before I know it, she's calling one of my very close people, because what I did was, when she came here, I wanted her to feel at home. So I took her to each of my very close people. I meant exactly that. I took her to A, to B, to C, to D. So she knew exactly the level of relationship and the length of relationship that we had built, and things like that. So she exploited that to her advantage. In fact, one of them, it took him like, I don't know, a couple of years after the separation he called me and apologized, that, it took him this long to even realize, so he heard what I was saying after all of this time had passed. Why? Simply because, I'm a man and things like that. Right. So yeah, it was just in so many dimensions and so many levels. I'm talking that we are together. We have kids together, and there was always this, the least thing that, because no relationship, I believe in relationship, I believe in family, I believe in all of those things. None of them is perfect, but there are a lot of excellent ones. Yeah. So but what I noticed about us was that each time we had a little difference, she would always throw out a D word. It was like a card. I want a divorce. When I say a minute difference, I mean a difference. I'm not even talking about a fight. She was like, I want a divorce. So I just looking back to our own life and what even actually transpired in our own relationship, I know that she came from a broken home. And anyone coming from a broken home, I'm sure they can understand me. It is not a curse. A lot of homes are dysfunctional. It does not mean that the products and byproducts will be dysfunctional. People get help along the way. So, but I'm just talking about this in context. She came from a broken home, and unfortunately, I believe along the way there was really no one to help her. Her dad and her parents separated and actually divorced when she was still very young. Her dad got married to someone else, and she experienced a lot of abuse in that relationship, being abused by her then stepmother, When she traveled to the United Kingdom, because her mom was there too. So when she went and met her mom there, that was when she even realized that her mom too was with another person. I don't recall if it was a marriage or it was just a boyfriend, but whoever this man was in her mom's life, he was abusing her mom physically and he was abusing her verbally to the point where she was on the verge of suicide at some point of her life. And all of this happened when I received letters that she wrote me about things and about those things. And then at the same time, what was going on is that her dad is still with his new wife. I mean, we're talking about stories of many years ago. But the story that had gone into her ear is about what her dad did, and so on and so forth. It's all about her dad's fault. Like they say, even like the Bible says, the first person who speaks, they sound right until you hear their counterparts or their interlocutors' own point of view and things like that.
Both sides of the story, right?
Exactly. Yes. Thanks. So she carried this grudge in her the whole time. Well, I mean, from years. I don't think she even knew that it was there. I'm sure before she even realized what was going on, it was building up in her so much.
Yes.
How do I know it? Because the time that we could spend together qualitatively as husband and wife, she spent that time whining about her dad. I don't mean that in a bad way. This is someone who needed a lot of help and did not even know. Complained a lot about her dad on days like Father's Day, that you would think that it would be a special day for me and her, and Father's Day for me, Mother's Day for her. Those are the days that she would choose to complain about her dad. I mean, it threw me in a very, I think it was manipulation, learned or unlearned, but it threw me in a very guilty place, because it's almost like, but this is my special day. Come on, why you bring your dad into the picture? And so it continued. At some point, I actually jumped in and I was like, listen, I don't know what happened, but I know there is something about forgiveness that can really help you and your dad. I'm sorry what you really went through, but don't you think you probably just heard your own mom's side of the story and things like that? So it turns out too that she had so much grudge against her mom, and which is so deep. What we're saying is really so deep, because as we reflect on it, I'm just thinking about the effect of divorce on children. So she had carried a lot of things in her. And it felt like the first kind of stable environment she really had was in our relationship. But at the same time, that was the place where she started pouring out all sorts of hatred, malice, that was within her. And she even used a statement that Rick Warren quotes often, that hurt people hurt others. And so I'm like, so why are you saying that to me? Like, you brought all the hurt, and so you want to throw it at me? We are not enemies, we are a team. So, but I mean, it kind of went like that. I felt like, I mean, I might be wrong, but I felt like I was the first kind of stable person that she met who didn't just want her for her body. And it almost felt like this is not normal life, because she had actually made the statement that the events that have transpired in her life have brought her to a very low place of self-worth, of self-dignity and self-esteem, to the point where she felt like the only way she would feel loved is by giving herself to men. And that was a life that she lived all along. And so there was little surprise that, not long into our relationship, there was really adultery involved in it and things like that. So, but, so there was this accumulation. So just think about it for a moment, what I was trying to fix. This is something that started years ago when I was just a young man, and things have happened over time. And here was I, her husband, trying to fix things, but it was deeper, it was deeper than that. And on hindsight, as I reflect on it, I honestly feel like she was trying to run away from the environment where she was in the UK. She wasn't happy about it. And I feel like she was just looking for someone who is level-headed enough to help her. I don't think she was really looking like ready, whatever ready means, people might have different, ready for marriage. Yes. Because I tell you what, when she came here, I put her through school, put her through the first school, put her through another school here. And each of those schools, there was always an issue with some Anyways, so there was always an issue with some other relationship going on, but we kind of roughed our way through because it wasn't easy. It is
Yeah.
a very isolating thing in a relationship to wait all those years and then you think that this is someone who will be committed to you. Temptation is out there for everyone, but some, despite the temptation, will be committed to you. But I found myself in this place of aloneness, in this place of emptiness, in this place of isolation. I was like, it's different when you are alone and single than when you
You're
are with
alone in a marriage
someone.
or in a relationship.
Exactly. So I went through that. It was very torturous, to say the least. It's to me, it's a form of abandonment because I wasn't cheating. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I had waited all those while. She was having fun. She was having other people there until there was a day she boldly told me that we had a little argument. She boldly told me that she is the one keeping the relationship. And in response, I was like, what else is it there that you can tell me you're the one keeping it? Because she was like, she's the one keeping the relationship because if she opens her mouth and says some things, this relationship will be over. You don't say that to someone that you really love.
Yeah.
So it was obvious that, I think she respected me, but I don't, whatever it means, needed me, but I think she
probably
wanted
didn't
me.
love you.
Yes. And I really had to, it was an eye opener.
A rude awakening.
Yes, a rude awakening for me. It gave me an opportunity to grieve, but to also accept the reality of it. And I made peace with myself because it took some time to really dawn on me that this person, she needs you to walk her through this life. You guys are already married, but she doesn't really want to be with you. Because she will make comments. She was like, oh, left to her, she would get married, should have got married to a person who is this, who is that, who is this. And she'll give all the other traits or attributes that I don't have. Take note, this is not a matter of low self-esteem on my part, but it's someone that I don't even know if they knew what they wanted. And then I was like, wait, you are not manipulated, you are not forced, you are not coerced, or you are not forced into this relationship. Why get into it? You've known so many people before me. Why did you get married to one of them? Why didn't one of them get married to you? Why did you have to go through this? You come to someone in their life, you get into their house, and then you start making those type of comments.
Right.
It was very torturous, to say the least. It made me feel more and more alone because it wasn't like someone says it and then they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Even though you must ask, but where did that come from? But it was backed by adultery. It was backed by numerous lies. It was backed by, even in marriage, your partner, your wife just disappears. She shows up after a couple of days. And, this is the United States of America. You have to, for men, self-control. Of course, for everyone, but, your self-control is more important than trying to make another person be what you want them, you want them to be.
Yeah.
There's just too many parts to the whole thing going on. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for, just opening up and, for being so vulnerable. You always end up saying so much and there's so much, again, to unpack from what you're saying. And there were a few points that I actually had to write down because I didn't want to forget to highlight or point out certain things. Now, I just want people to realize the extent of the emotional abuse that you actually went through in this relationship, because that is like some serious emotional and even verbal abuse that you went through in the relationship. And this is just pure evidence. And I swear that this discussion is not made up. For those who cannot believe, this is not made up. This is a real life story that a very confident and gracious African man has experienced. It's rather unfortunate, but this is definitely a story that is worth hearing. I cannot stress enough, like, it has nothing to do with your self-esteem. It has nothing to do with your manhood. It has actually everything to do with the perpetrator, with the person who was treating you that way. And you were gracious and patient enough to handle that. So I just want us to really rather appreciate the extent of emotional abuse that you went through, and also something that real men go through. And the whole ideology that men don't cry, that's one thing that I personally cannot stand, because it actually suppresses a lot of men. We're so used to women not being heard. We're so used to women being hushed, or women just told to suck it up and stuff. But men actually tend to go through worse because, number one, it takes a lot for a man to open up to someone. And
Yeah.
then for them to assume that men do not cry. I mean, a woman naturally, or maybe typically, a woman will complain about, open up about the smallest things, right? But men always, when you see a man trying to open up to you, you know that things are bad.
Yeah.
So the whole ideology that men don't cry, I feel like that's what's killing our community even more. And I believe that men should equally be heard as much as women, and
Yeah.
talking about, when you spoke about her past, I mean, it's very, very obvious that unresolved trauma actually can either make or break people, right? There's some people who have gone through trauma, and they choose to not be like what they've gone through. And then there's some other people that, especially when they have that trauma that's unresolved, it's like it actually makes them so bitter at life and just people in general, and even at themselves. People usually tend to treat you based on how they feel about themselves. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that you seem to have gotten that, because that did not shake your confidence, that did not shake your self-esteem, because you knew that she probably did not even know what she wanted. That's why she was acting that way.
Yeah.
So another lesson that, it's very important for us to really know the people and their past, people that we're getting into a lifetime of marriage with, because sometimes we may know, but like I said, going back to the previous statement that I made, we still stick to this idea or this ideology of who we want them to be or who we think they are, that we get so blindsided that
Yep.
it makes us actually, ignore who they are truly showing us to be, who they're truly showing us that they are. So
Yeah.
we have to really always pray for that discernment. We always have to have that discernment to really know who is right, and who is there, who has true intentions, and who is there to manipulate us. Even though at the same time, it tends to be very difficult, especially when you're in love. Love can
Hmm.
really blindside you as well. So I really commend you and thank you for opening up to this extent.
Oh,
Now,
thanks.
I mean, considering the fact that you already told us about her past and everything, like, did you consider all of this before proposing to her? And what did you tell yourself, like, when you saw all these red flags, but still decided to get married to her?
I'm gonna fix her. I'm gonna fix it, and everything will be all right. This is just for a moment. It's gonna pass away. That's what I told myself. That's what I lied to myself. And part of it was my ignorance. I keep saying that it was not desperation. Part of it was my ignorance. That is how I understood life and things like that. That's how I understood that is what it takes to be a man. We can get all kinds of wonderful teachings on this earth, but the one that goes into our heart, that is who we really are. And
Yeah.
which is why I'm glad, like some of the things you mentioned, it just reminded me of what one of my very good friends said, that if a person shows you who they are, pay attention. If you knew this person in high school and there are other behaviors showing maybe after 20 years of meeting, pay attention to that. Don't get stuck with, this is how he was or she was or they were.
Yeah.
So I think I haven't learned about her past. You would think that this was time for me to back out of the relationship. It was, um, I don't know if I should call it the curse of love. I'm just looking for the right phrase to really caption it.
Right. Fair
But
enough.
yeah, I know,
That's a
because
love.
yes, on the one hand, you see things about this person that you like, and then on the other hand, it's like a blind spot. You see the evil, and then you use the good to make up for the evil. So that is what I believe, that is part of what is called to be an enabler. Which is not a positive term in this scenario. And I think I was kind of being that. If I had stood up if I'd stood up and backed out, it would have been less damage.
Yeah.
Um, I attempted that once. I was like, this is over. And she was like, oh, you're the one who said you're going to get married to me and things like that and stuff like that. And I succumbed to it, especially after that. Sometimes if we don't really step back, when I say step back, I mean step back emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
We just, and no matter how much we love or care about someone, sometimes it's good to put those emotions aside and then address them, because they have shown repeatedly that they are very valuable, but they are not good leaders. I'm talking about emotions.
Yeah.
So to the point where I was blindsided by my own emotions, that's how I got deeper and deeper into the trench. So I just had one thing in mind. I was going to fix her, and then things will be all right. Happily ever after. My good friend told me, Femi, it's be patient, Femi. I'm telling you, just be patient. It may take some time. It's like working on a farm. You don't see the result, and then after a couple of years, bam, things come out. I mean, he could say that. I don't know his experience. They said advice is one of the cheapest commodities. I bought the commodity. He did not force it on me. I did not know any better. And I wrote along with all of those things. But you remember, I was the one in the relationship. And there were a couple of attempts, which in hindsight, it was not mutual. It was me trying to lead her. It was me trying to change her. That is not good leadership. I say it with a healthy sense of self-esteem, but that's really not good leadership. We were adults. We are still adults. People have to want to do something and things like that. Why do I say this? Because even while in a relationship, I proposed. Again, we did not agree.
Yeah.
Not that we disagreed, but I proposed, and so she played along. I proposed that we should seek professional counseling. We're talking to a pastor or more here and there, but I was talking about professional counseling.
Yeah.
Someone has to want to get help. Otherwise, the best knowledge on this earth will not even make the slightest change on them. She went because I said so, not because she found the need to. I think there was so much. I remember one of the sessions there was a time when we went individually, and I just don't want to get into the details, because whatever was said in the sessions was used against me. She was not even doing what the counselor was asking her to do, for self-help and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, but one, I remember this session, we were there together. And in that session, even though we talked about the adulterous thing, at least that was one of the occasions where she actually confessed it. But this was how she put it. She was like, now that she's been in an adulterous affair, she has got my attention. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Oh, yes, I am not making this up. God bears me witness. And this is many years have gone by, so it's not like this is something fresh.
Yeah.
I had to go through a therapeutic self forgiveness thing, not for her sake, but for the sake of my heart. So I'm in a stable place talking about this thing, and things like that. So, but she mentioned that she's very eloquent, and she has some good qualities in her, no doubt about that. And sometimes, if you don't know where you're standing, you may easily get swayed, by those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's so anyway. So I saw some things in the session. She mentioned those kind of things there, and then guess what? After that session, her mom learned that we were seeing a professional counselor out there who was seeing a therapist. It was not cheap. It was expensive, but not nearly as expensive as the divorce process, which is that's a conversation for some other time. Because they say that if you think that therapy is expensive, then try divorce. So it was expensive, no doubt, but it was nothing near what the divorce process was. But let me just stick with the point I was trying to make. When her mom learned that we've seen a professional counselor, her mom sent her this long text message. I read it. She was like, be very careful with Femi, because he is trying to use this to gather evidence against you to use in the legal system to, an appropriate reason to file for a divorce. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know. I was lifeless, I was motionless, I was speechless. I just don't know. Because that was the most classless and ignorant thing you could ever say to someone. I said I was an enabler, but I mean, I was nowhere near how much her own mom enabled her in negativity. Even though she's an adult, but so even though she's an adult, she takes responsibility for her actions. I'm not taking responsibility for that. But when I when I read it, I was thinking to myself, how ignorant. How ignorant. First of all, there was already evidence of adultery, which, the legal system in my state, it's legal grounds for divorce.
Yeah.
And all of those things. There was abandonment, which I could not really prove, if you know what I mean. But the adultery was enough. So if I wanted to use that, adultery had already happened, and we're trying to work our way through it, which was another low moment in the relationship. So from that point on, I just knew it. I just knew it that this was a waste of money. This was a waste of time. Believe it or not, that was how it ended. And in the comments that followed, it was evident that I was the one pushing for it. Her heart wasn't there. So, but as we're talking, time is going by in the relationship. And she was in school. I put her in some school here because she had come, she wasn't working, and so on and so forth. And then one of her one of her daughter's partners, one of her boyfriends, she actually told the guy that that as soon as she's done with that school, I'm the one paying for the school. I'm the one sponsoring just about everything. That as soon as she's done with the school, she was going to leave. It's not even the guy that she's with today, if you know what I mean. So it's sometimes we don't even know what we want. So, but that's all of those things I'm saying. I have first-hand evidence. It was not hearsay. No one gets married with the intent of getting divorced.
Yeah.
So all of those things that went on. So it did not help that I was trying to I was like, listen, it will, if we have just the basic necessities for a year, food, shelter, clothing, forgo any vacation, forgo any eating out, only for a year compared to the rest of our lives, and we seek professional counseling. Matter of fact, I even quoted her. Rick Warren is some preacher in some state here in the United States. I even quoted Rick Warren to her that Rick Warren he once talked about his life with his wife in the early days, that there was so much different. They had so much differences that they spent 1 year. Counseling wasn't cheap, but they spent 1 year just going to a counselor. Just today, he's in his 60s. I'm sure they've been married maybe at least 40 years now or more, and they are still together. So I was just saying those things, but those were my thoughts. I don't know. Just think about it for a moment. How do you engage someone who is either a yes or a no, who is not adding something or maybe taking something, at least in the conversation? That was where I found myself. And I was like, what is going on? What is going on? So what do you think? How should we, what do you have in mind? I want this thing to work. I wasn't crazy. I was, yes. When it comes to me, this wasn't about a third party. I'm so far from that. I am here, but we have to go through it, whatever the holes are, and the pitfalls. We have to walk through this together. Not my friends, your friends, mother, father, paternal, maternal, marital, whatever. None of them is going to fix this for us. We have to take ownership. But it felt like somehow it was supposed to have already been fixed. So it was not all of these ideas about seeking counseling, even though we tried, it wasn't met with reciprocity. And so things just kept going down and down the drain. The abuse did not stop. In fact, there were even evidences of physical abuse in the relationship.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, when did we've really elaborated on the emotional abuse, and people will probably think that that's about it, but there was actually a huge chunk of domestic and physical abuse. So when did that actually start, and how did it start?
This. Where do I begin? I asked someone a question. If I drink once every 2 years, does that make me a drinker? I'm not saying a drunk. or let me put it this way, if I cheat on my husband once every 5 years, does that make it an adultery? Does that make me a cheat or not? I'm saying this just finding my way to your question.
Right.
If you saw evidence of physical abuse or any form of domestic abuse, if it's not every day, if it is every month or once a year or once every 2 years, is that an abusive relationship or not? So, I mean, in my opinion, you cannot really give what you have, because again, if it's coming from your heart, then it's coming from somewhere. It's not neutral. It's not like a mispronounced word and you correct yourself immediately. It is coming from somewhere. So this is just going back. I feel like her exposures to the abuse that she went through. I mean, she went through different kinds of abuse herself growing up from a very early age, which I really feel sorry about, and, because there was really an absence of proper care at some point of her life. And so strangers help themselves. And so I think the abuse along the line that she was exposed to, both in Africa and in Europe, they just kept adding up. And I don't think she got married and then she was like, okay, when I get married, I'm going to do Bruce Lee on my husband or something of that sort. But it just came. Was it once? Absolutely not. Sometimes it starts with shoving. And then before you know it, then it grows a little bit more than that. So I remember it. I remember a situation. I don't remember what she was upset about, but when I actually came and laid next to her in bed, she actually like she pushed me. When I say push, I mean a push that landed me on the floor. And so it was like, okay, that's just an isolated incident or situation. Okay, then a couple of months later, something else happened. Now, to be honest with you, I did not stop to think. That is what happens sometimes in an abusive cycle. Sometimes you don't even know that it is an abuse, because they know sometimes while it is going on, other good things are happening in the relationship. You have a companion and all of those things. So sometimes you tend to forget, then something else happens again. It might be killing something in the inside of you or in your relationship, and you don't even realize it. So these things went on and on and on and on and on. One little thing here, one little thing there. And things like that. And I was very careful. When I say very careful, is because I keep touching on the whole legal thing, because I kind of have an idea of things here. Because when you look online, you see statistics on domestic violence. What do you see? The first thing that thank you is women. The victims are the women. The perpetrators, are the men and things like that. So it's almost like as a man, you have to prove yourself twice. I was just reading up something, and what the writer said was, I don't remember where I read that from, but basically what they were saying is that a lot of domestic abuse goes unreported, whether it's abuse between partners or against children or things like that on both parties. But there's a whole lot more reported by women than about men. So all of these things are happening. Sometimes we almost make justification for the abuser. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Or sometimes we are thrown into a guilt cycle. Sometimes it almost turns into narcissism. They throw your mind into a place of triangulation, and you start thinking, maybe it is that. So you see, you are taking the focus away from them. And then they cry tomorrow. And then 2 weeks later, the cycle repeats itself. You are abusing again one way or another. Or 6 months later, or just things like that. Within those times, your friends are inviting you. You're going for this wedding. You're wearing your matching African outfit and things like that. So people envy you and things like that. It's like Facebook, And then but the abuse is going on, because if it is in the foundation, it does not matter how much you beautify the building. If the foundation is rotten, it's just a matter of time. It will crumble. And that is what was happening with us. It was crumbling. We were trying to see, we were not fully committed to any path of healing, because we're not working in that direction as one. So we just kept going. And we kept struggling until the straw that broke the camel's back was when she put her hands on me in the most violent way possible. from the time I was born till this day, no one has ever, I'm talking about a woman. It takes a lot out of me as a man to even mention this. From the time I was born till this day, no one has ever put their hands on me that way. So she was upset about something. And there was a little bit of tension. When when you introduce a third party in your relationship, you then the how do you say this, the sacredness of the relationship is already compromised. So I'm trying to remember from the kitchen. Then she went out. I was out on the balcony. We're on some second floor building. And so she was trying to say something down, and she did not like my response because I did not want to listen to what she was saying. You want to talk to me, then talk to me inside the house. So I walked away while she was still talking. She was out in the parking lot. I was on the balcony of the second floor.
Yeah.
And as I was walking away, oh my goodness, I saw the swiftness with which she made a U-turn, charging back up. She carried, then we already had kids. She carried one of the children. She had one of the children in her hand. And then as she was coming, and I saw the way she was coming, knowing what I've experienced before, I went straight into one of the rooms in the house. I locked the door. I did not just close it. I locked it from the inside.
Right.
So she came up the flight of stairs to the second floor, opened the door with the key she had. And when she approached the room where I was, she was banging and I did not open. I heard bam, bam, bam. That's the anger, the rage, the fury, everything that has happened to her in her whole life. I'm sure she confessed in that one moment. And she broke that door. She broke that door. Yeah. As I still have the picture of that till this day, because the door wasn't fixed immediately. But when she was doing all of that, I scrambled. I reached out for my phone. I was you don't understand. Yeah. Someone who has been through, I've heard people who have lost limbs, lost an eye, and things like that. Mine wasn't up to that level, but it was traumatic enough. My feelings, my thought, and all of those things. That is not the natural way of life. So while she's doing that, I reached out for my phone real quickly. I was like, hopefully by the time she sees my phone, trying to video her as she bumps in, she'll be scared. Like I said, she had a child in her hand.
Wow.
And that did not even, the force that she hit that door, she landed on the floor with my, yes, I had another child with me, sitting on a desk, and then I took this phone out. That did not mean anything. Wherever her hand reached, she grabbed me. It happened so quickly and so fast. She grabbed that phone too, flung the phone, and the phone broke. So that's how I could not even record any of those things. I mean that she landed on the floor, left one child on the floor, grabbed me to the floor with the other child on the floor, and then she climbed on my back. When I say pounding and pouncing, she took out all the venom that was in her. Oh my goodness. Bam, 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 bam. And at some point, I was like, I started groaning in pain just to get her off me. I don't know whatever she was saying, but it was on the back of my neck, her finger. I don't think she was even thinking through the process. I don't know what got into her. But this is not an isolation, because just by the way, she had mentioned something that she had done similarly to someone in a previous relationship before she got to me. So I'm saying this as a man because the thing is, what did you do? Yeah. What did you do before that happened? If you do not have, and sometimes that's the guilt that we go through the process. Yeah. What did I do wrong? And so we get stuck, and we just shut down, and we just be, because it's like they're always going to ask that question. But back to the whole scenario. She did that, and then as soon as I got the slightest relief, I got out of that position immediately. Think about it. These children, both of them were under 4 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Both of them were under 4 years old. I mean that she pounded. They were screaming. They don't know. You don't even know. As soon as I got the slightest way, I ran. I'm telling you, from the depth of my heart, God bears me witness, I did not put even one finger on her. I mean, like I did not even struggle to like push her away, because I felt like all of that was just to get me to prevaricate, and then it's going to be grounds for her. I know it. This has happened to one of my friends. Whatever was happening with he and his wife, it was a neighbor who called the police. As soon as the police came, they took him, they separated him from his wife, and they locked him up. So I know those things, how people set traps up, and it so happened that this lady too was her friend. So I didn't. As soon as I got that little gap, I got up straight and I went straight to the living room. She followed me there. Think about it. These children are less than 4. They don't even know what to do. These are the adults who are supposed to be protecting us. What is going on here? Their brains cannot even wrap around it. And then she still kept hitting me as I went to the living room. I did not even know what to do. My phone was already broken. Take note. So I went back to the balcony outside, just hoping that maybe from the eyes of onlookers, she would be scared. She did not stop. She did not. Oh. She did not stop. She kept hitting me out the whatever thing she was saying. And so as she kept doing that, I said, this is not working. I walked back into the living room, and she continued. She continued until when she had enough. Now she bundled both children. So prior to the act, she had one child with her going out, and then I had the other child with me. Now she bundled both of them. She was like, give me these children. I did not. I mean, how do you deal with that kind of rage? I don't know how God protected me, because all it needed was just one response that she did not like, and then she would have used her own phone to do whatever she wanted to do. And she bundled both children and she left.
Oh my goodness.
Left because we had just one car then, got into the car. As soon as she left, I didn't know what was going on, but I think my blood pressure was very high because I could feel all types of things. There was blood on the back of my neck. I knocked on the neighbors, very next door neighbors' doors, those apartments here, but no one opened. I don't think my neighbor was in. So guess what I did? I had to walk to the nearest. My phone was destroyed. I wasn't even looking for the police. I was looking for an ambulance because I don't know what was going on with me. I was well hit. I mean, she poured out her venom on me. I walked to the nearest store, which was a Giant. I walked for about 20 minutes. And I just went to the nearest cashier or whatever there you call it, manager. I said, I've just been seriously beaten by my wife. How do you say that? Who even first of all believes you?
It's like hearing that. It's just then, like laugh. It's not laughable. Like what you did, like what happened to you, but it's unbelievable.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's not the normal. It's not the norm.
No.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening to our show. If you want to participate in the show or find out more helpful resources, then visit www.livingafricanpodcast.com for more information or email us at hello@livingafricanpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to connect with us on all social media platforms at Living African Podcast. You can also connect with Anyo directly on Facebook or Instagram at Anyo Fambard. Thanks again for listening, and let's not forget to be more understanding and nicer to one another.